Bob Cusack is the editor-in-chief of The Hill. Bob, thanks for joining us. Federal officials are looking into the threats, but is the president doing enough to condemn anti-Semitism and racism?
Well, he's done it on a number of occasions, as he mentioned in that interview. He's mentioned it in debates that he's the least racist person. But also at his press conference last week, he called on a black reporter and suggested she could put a meeting together with the Congressional Black Caucus, took some heat on that. There was some criticism about the White House statement on the Holocaust. Honestly, I think that was a little bit overblown. The White House has pushed back on that, noting that in the inner circle of the President Trump are Jewish people like Jared Kushner. So I think overall he's trying to show a bit of a softer side. I think that gets lost sometimes when he does his kind of angry tweets or he pushes back at a political opponent. But we have seen a bit, at least today, try the softer side of Donald Trump.
Well, I also think it's interesting, though, kind of how he's managed this situation. He has evaded a couple of questions in the last couple of press conferences that he held about this. He also, it's no secret that there are a number of prominent white nationals and neo-Nazi groups who supported him. So in some ways, does he have to walk a fine line with people who supported his campaign?
You know, I think to some degree, yes. You know, he has gotten some support from very controversial groups. He has tried to put some distance between himself and those groups. But at the same time, it is a tricky political situation because, you know, when you're trying to get votes, you want to get the votes of everybody. But at the same time, I do think that the president, since he's been inaugurated, has put more distance than he did perhaps on the campaign trail.
Bob, let's talk about some poll numbers that are out. The Hill partnered with Harvard for a new online poll, which found 73% of voters say Democrats should work with the president. That's compared to just 27% saying they should resist. On the flip side, 68% say the president should find areas to compromise with Democrats. What do these polls tell you?
Well, I think they show that the American people are getting very tired of gridlock, and President Trump has the political ability to strike deals with Democrats and Republicans. He wrote Art of the Deal, after all. Now, Democrats is a tough position for Democrats because Trump's approval ratings are low, especially for a new president. Do they work with this president and give him big victories, such as on tax reform? They're not going to do it on Obamacare, of course, but on transportation. The party is split between, well, why don't we work with him on some issues, and on other issues, you know, the left is saying, don't work with this guy at all, don't approve his cabinet, fight him at every step of the way. So that's where Democrats in that poll, it just shows them divided along those lines.
But is there an area where Democrats and Trump could find common ground?
I think on transportation spending. Now, the conservatives in Congress are very nervous that President Trump is going to send a $1 trillion transportation bill up to Capitol Hill. They don't want a $1 trillion stimulus, as Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said earlier this year. They want to have a transportation bill, but they don't want it to be so pricey. They want it paid for. Democrats are very interested, including a Democratic leader in the Senate, Charles Schumer. He wants to work with Trump on that issue. So that's the one area that I see that's the most leading, that they could come together, but that's going to divide the Republican Party.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to watch how all of this plays out. One of the other things that's been happening, obviously, over the last week is the National Security Advisor position. And there's been so much back and forth, and it really was a distraction away from getting some real work done, I think, in Washington. Mm-hmm. We now have General H.R. McMaster is going to be the new National Security Advisor. What's your reaction to adding another general to Donald Trump's team? And does this indicate that the White House will now be able to move past all the controversy and focus on some policy issues?
Well, certainly congressional Republicans are hoping that. McMaster's is respected on both sides of the aisle. A lot of people prefer him over Michael Flynn. That was a rough week, I think, Flynn's resignation last week. A bit overshadowed by the long Trump press conference, and I think that was by design.
But the press conference was almost in response to what was happening within the NSA. So
yes, and certainly the Russia theme is one to watch. If anything, if there's another shoe to drop. Over the weekend, White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus was saying this was no contact whatsoever, unequivocal, that Trump campaign officials were talking to Russian diplomats or spies. So those statements could come back to haunt the White House if we find out some other type of news. But controversy is going to be something in the Trump White House. Now, does that work on the campaign trail? It did. He's president. Will it work for governing? That remains to be seen.
The other issue we were just talking to Paula Reed about at the Justice Department is the Department of Homeland Security releasing the guidance on immigration today. Many more undocumented immigrants could be subject to deportation, as we were just discussing. This is not an unexpected move here.
No, it's not. And it's consistent with what Trump promised on the campaign trail. The one issue that he hasn't decided yet is on the so-called dreamers. But this is taking a hard line on immigration, reversing a lot of what President Obama did, and the president has a lot of discretion on enforcement. Remember, in 2014, immigration activists who are friends with Barack Obama called Obama the deporter-in-chief. So now they may take that label and put it on Trump. But this is a hard line. This is consistent with what he said. He still has to decide whether he's going to repeal President Obama's executive order on the so-called dreamers.
And Bob, he's also expected to issue a new travel ban this week. Do you see his immigration and national security policies running into more setbacks?
Well, it depends on how they do it. Legal scholars say that he's got a lot of authority here, that the president has the ability to do this, but it has to be done in the right way. And that travel ban was rushed out. Obviously, he didn't have his full cabinet. Legal scholars say it all depends on how he does it. Clearly, the first one did not hold up to snuff, and you had 2 Republican judges rule against the White House. So I think it's going to be a close call, but without a doubt, I think this one is going to be a lot legally tighter than the initial one.
Okay, we'll watch for that. Bob Cusack in Washington, thank you so much.
Thank you.